Human beings make terrible judges. Becoming a judge requires at least a decade of intense training and experience. They're the pillars of our society, the least vulnerable to bias and prejudice, logical, fair, and unmoved by external factors. Yet, they're not. Take, for example, a study of over 1,100 rulings on parole. The result of the study, these 3 charts. On the vertical axis is parole acceptance rates. On the very left of each chart, acceptance is roughly 65%, then quickly declines to near zero on the very right. What do these charts represent, you ask? Here's the snack break, and here's the lunch break. That's right. In the decision to grant prisoner parole, whether prisoners spent a chunk of their lives in prison or outside society, the determining factor for judges is whether they had a meal break. In just a couple hours, parole rates dropped from around 65% to near zero, which would rise back to 65% after a break. So shocking were these results that the researchers looked at the type of prisoner offenses, previous incarceration, months served, and presence of rehab programs to see if there was something else causing this effect. What they found was nothing. This effect was caused by the presence of meal breaks. As the researchers concluded, the judges would experience decision fatigue. They would become mentally depleted from all the decisions they would make, and would make the easier and less risky decision of rejecting parole over time. We've probably all done or seen this in some form before. Most people can probably name a time when someone said they wanted takeout, only for them to say they had no clue what they wanted, yet reject every suggestion made. Decisions become harder when we're tired, and we increasingly seek an easy option. But aren't judges supposed to be different? Why are these highly skilled judges, with decades of experience in being rational and unbiased, so easily swayed? Surely, this is just a unique example. Well, it's not just fatigue that can affect judges. Emotional events have long-lasting impacts on important decisions. Imagine for a second you're a judge in Louisiana. You're watching a game of your local football team, the Louisiana State Tigers. While you're expecting them to easily win, they end up losing the game. So in your frustration, you decide, hey, let's give longer probation or prison sentences to disadvantaged teens between the age of 10 and 17. For the actual Louisiana judges, and for any human being with a conscience, probably none of them thought that, yet most of them did exactly that. In a study of over 9,200 legal cases of juveniles involving 209 Louisiana judges, it was found that for cases after a surprise loss by the Louisiana State University team, the LSU Tigers, judges' sentences were 34 days longer. A telling sign that it was a loss itself that caused this increase was the fact that when divided between graduates from Louisiana State University and non-graduates, judges who graduated from LSU gave longer sentences by 72 days during an unexpected game loss, while those who didn't graduate from LSU did not give statistically significant increases in sentences. In the state of Louisiana, every unexpected loss resulted in nearly 1,300 more days in custody or probation. Just imagine that. A few kids between the age of 10 and 17 will be spending a total extra 3.5 years in jail or probation because the local favorite sports team lost. That's not the most shocking part of the study though. Similarly to how making decisions over time without a meal break can result in judges making the easier decision, emotional events also affect those who people unconsciously are easier to be biased towards. Black defendants didn't receive longer sentences when there wasn't a football game. However, when an unexpected loss happened to the LSU Tigers, it was found that black defendants received 43 days more in sentences, while white defendants did not see a statistical significant increase in their sentences. This was found whether the judges were themselves white or black. In other words, judges were unconsciously displacing their anger of a lost football game on black defendants, regardless of whether they themselves experienced that racism or not. While judges can train decades to improve their conscious mind against biases, it's hard to erase the unconscious bias. Our unconscious is even biased by small things like weather. Examining nearly 207,000 immigration cases in the United States, it was found that a 10-degree Fahrenheit or 5.6 degrees Celsius increase in temperature decreased the total number of immigration applications being accepted by 6.55%. Even more shocking, these decisions were made indoors in a climate-controlled environment. In other words, our bodies unconsciously considered the weather of the day and used it in our decision making. If you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense. As humans, higher temperatures make it difficult to run. We overheat faster and quickly slow down, making us susceptible to predators. Our ancient ancestors evolved to unconsciously take this into consideration when scavenging. Studies show that this persisted to modern-day humans, with higher temperatures being associated with lower risk appetite. When our ancient ancestors would sit in shade, either behind a rock or tree, they'd be cool, safe from the sun, but it doesn't change the hot weather once they leave the shade. In the modern day, our bodies automatically account for higher temperatures, whether we're behind a tree or indoors in climate-controlled conditions. We reduce our appetite to take risks, such as approving immigration cases. If professional judges in an air-controlled environment protected by high-quality climate control technology can even be affected by the weather outside, what does that say about the rest of us who don't have that training? Decisions, after all, are what really define our lives. How hard we focus on our education, when to look for a new job, what to buy, what to invest in, who to vote for. These studies have shown that our decisions are often influenced by seemingly irrelevant factors such as lunch, football games, and the weather. Well, we can take what we've learned about judges and apply it to other important areas of society. Clinicians often give into patient demands or try to conclude visits quickly by prescribing antibiotics for acute respiratory infection, an inappropriate service. Of a study of nearly 22,000 visits for acute respiratory infection, it was found that after 4 hours, clinicians were 26% more likely to prescribe unnecessary antibiotics. Having shorter sessions, mandatory breaks, or setting minimum times for per patient clinic visits can improve the rate at which the correct prescription is given. As individuals, we can try to take more breaks and make decisions when we're refreshed. When people are having a bad day, give them space and make any suggestions to them when their mood has improved. Consider the temperature as well. People are more likely to accept innovative ideas during cold weather and are more resilient to change during hot weather. Make rational decisions beforehand and stick with them. If you plan to hold your stock investments for the long term, remember your plan when the market crashes so you don't start irrationally panic selling. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is fine and all for reducing the chance of poor decision making, but the irrationality and bias are still there. So what about something seemingly unbiased and logical, like a computer? Computers don't have biases. Their decisions aren't affected by the weather or football games. They never get tired and make worse decisions. Could we just put the computers in charge? Well, it's important to know that humans are the ones who design computer-based systems. These systems can be poorly designed. For example, search engines use complex algorithms to get you the best search results. The hope was that this would detect websites with better content and would drive better content. However, nowadays, websites, rather than having the best content, are competing to be preferred by search engines and be the first result shown by having the best search engine optimization. Unintentionally, our attempt to improve search engines resulted in more effort being spent on gaming the search engine itself and less on content on websites. If we were to apply machine learning, artificial intelligence, to help find and decide on the best candidate for jobs or college applications, people who are more financially well off can hire people to help them design their applications to pander to the algorithms, rather than actually being a good job or college candidate. Computers, in fact, have their pros and cons, and it depends on how they're used. Maybe in the far future, they could be well designed, but it's a long way off, and we don't want to create decades of unintended consequences. Until then, we should try to improve as humans and recognize that we're not always the most rational or unbiased, even when we're conscious of it. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing or contributing to my Patreon. I'll be posting at least once a week with interesting videos on psychology and behavioral economics, so I definitely suggest subscribing if you haven't already.